On September 22nd, 2023, the fall equinox, literally the day summer turns to autumn, the day a season marked by bounty and abundance closes and turns into one marked by a slow descent towards decay and rest, my family and I lost one of our most cherished heirlooms, a framed portrait of an eagle in flight, landing, that my deceased dad illustrated. My mom had shipped out the eagle portrait to my brother Dex through UPS and received notice shortly afterwards that it was discarded. Supposedly, the glass of the frame had cracked and it was deemed a safety hazard for the postal workers. Despite her having paid hundreds to protect it with shipping insurance, having had it wrapped and packed up by professional movers since she was moving out of her current condo and into a new home, having covered it in fragile glass tape, and having paid for expedited shipping, the portrait is still gone forever. It makes my stomach sink to say this out loud. We're going. Hopefully my camera stays in place. But thank you for joining me for this interesting adventure. I just left my house and I'm on my way to my dad's grave. And I haven't reread the script that I wrote, the piece of writing that I wrote on the airplane on the way home from San Diego when I was visiting my boyfriend after I got the news that my most cherished family heirloom, which was this portrait of my dad's eagle, was discarded by UPS. So I think I'll actually read that so I can supplement those words with words that aren't me repeating myself. My mom had spent tons of time and energy on the phone after receiving this tragic news, trying to fight the UPS workers, asking for managers, telling them to dig it out from the garbage, and after all her efforts, being told they were not allowed to dig through the garbage and recover the cherished article due to safety reasons. When I received my mom's text that this had happened, that our beloved eagle portrait was thrown away, I was shocked. I couldn't speak. I was visiting my long-distance boyfriend at the time, standing next to him in his bedroom, getting myself ready to head to the airport in an hour from that exact moment. Soon I'd be flying from one coast to another to return home. In hindsight, I feel a cold sense of irony in that moment, of my last moment standing in his bedroom. My internal devastation over this noble hand-drawn eagle portrait made by the love of my mom's life, juxtaposed by my at-the-time boyfriend working at a portrait of two mated birds tending a nest filled with their own eggs. Does this not ooze a mysterious and divine kind of symbolism? With great loss comes new life. A noble eagle dies, and yet new birds are soon to be born. I also wanted to tell the story and give a little background on my relationship with my dad and memories with him. My dad passed away when I was 7 months old, and he died in a plane crash. But it didn't actually crash when everybody died. If you Google Swiss Air Flight 111, happened in 1998, you'll be able to read the story of what happened, and it's quite intense. Oh my gosh, get out of the road. A mourning dove, how appropriate. My dad was on a business trip from, I think, Buffalo to New York to Sweden. When they were 10,000 feet in the air, some wires, I believe, in the cabin started smoking, and the CO2 poisoning caused everybody to pass out or suffocate. I don't know what happened exactly. The story that I had in my head growing up as a kid up until last year, when I actually Googled what happened and read that people basically got smoked out in the cabin, was that the air pressure dropped and everybody just went unconscious and peacefully passed away. Yeah, yeah, the wires started smoking, and people died in the air. And there was, I think, 222 or 220 people on the plane. They all died. Every single person died. I think the radio signal was lost on the plane, and so there was no communication. But again, I would read the story if you're curious, then I can probably just post it in the description. That happened, and the plane then fell into the ocean and burst into a million pieces, and it crashed at a place called Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia, Halifax, Canada. A lot of people's belongings and pieces of the plane were recovered by the divers. My mom had me, I was a little 7 or 8 month old, my sister, who was like a 3 or 4 year old, and then my brother, who was maybe 5 or 6. And then after he died, my mom moved to Long Island, and that's where I grew up. But that's how my dad died. He died in a plane crash. I don't have experiences of us interacting in the flesh, but I have spiritual experiences with him and emotional experiences and connection with him. He was born in Japan, and he came here when he was maybe 2 years old, and he grew up in San Diego. Went to high school in Hawaii for a little bit. He was an incredible artist, and I wish I had photos. I'm sure they exist somewhere, but I wish I knew where I could find photos of his eagle that he drew. But it was this like 2 foot by 3 foot, like massive, beautiful portrait of an eagle that he did freehand, and he sketched it with pencil. And he started to color the feathers on the wings with colored pencil. And I always describe the quality of blending that he achieved as like reminiscent of like computer animated graphics, because the blending was so precise and so immaculate and amazing. And he didn't finish it before he passed away. But that piece of art was hanging above the mantle on my fireplace in the living room of the house that I grew up in Long Island. For my whole life, I've told the story that my creative capacity, my visual illustrative skills came from or were nurtured heavily by the fact that every day when I would wake up and leave my bedroom, I would see this noble portrait hanging over the fireplace. When I was 13 or 12, I was in 4th grade, and my best friend at the time, her and I were very much into supernatural things and ghosts, and we played psychic games, and we would sit down together and describe a spectrum of colors to one another, and then make one another guess what color we were thinking of, and we would like talk to ghosts. We were very, very much into like exploring these like subtle supernatural realms. I remember since I was 8 years old, my mom would take me to these like paranormal investigation groups as a child, and I loved that, because it gave me a wonderful outlet for my like high sensitivity, and it gave me very practical outlets and practical tools and skills to cultivate my connection with subtle realms. One of the things that we did in these groups was spirit photography, and so basically the concept was you take photos of things and reflective glass vessels and rooms and windows and all these things, and sometimes those details would reveal messages or faces or numbers, or I guess it was a form of divination, but I don't know. I was like 10 years old when we were doing this, but I remember the workshop I went to with my mom in Long Island, and Long Island is a place very rich in history. So when we met with these paranormal investigation groups, we would go to like old mansions and old estates, like from dating like 200 or 300 years back, I think 1800s, 1700s. That was really special, and I was able to connect to my father in many different instances throughout my life, because I had those tools, I guess. Back to what I was saying before, with this friend that I had when I was in 4th grade, we were doing spirit photography for fun one time. So the way the layout of my house was there was my living room, and then the wall with the eagle hanging above the fireplace, and then my staircase, it had a landing and it like curved, so you would go down the stairs, and when you're standing on the landing you could look over the banister and see the whole living room. I had my friend standing on the balcony and I was standing in the living room, so she was taking spirit photos of me, and we were putting the flash on and seeing if we could capture anything. And if I do have this photo, it's somewhere on an old USB drive that I've had since I was in middle school. But if I don't have it on a hard drive like that, then it's most likely gone. But she took a photo, and I had my arms like up and my hands open to the sky, like in a Y shape. And I was standing in the middle of my living room, and the portrait was over my head in the background. And the light of the flash reflected off of the like armpit of the eagle wing, and created an orb, and from that orb descended a beam of light that perfectly filled from edge to edge the palm of my hand. And I was maybe 11 or 12 when she took that photo, and I showed it to my mom, and I remember my mom was just enthralled by the photo and by the juxtaposition of the light. And, you know, of course, we like to think that, you know, the reason the light reflected that way was purely because of my dad's love and effort to communicate with us. And, you know how it goes. Maybe you don't know how it goes, but that's how it went. And that's the story of that photo, and I wish I had it to share. So that was one connection that I had with my dad. Another one was kind of maybe less significant for me, but it still was impactful. I was receiving a massage from this body worker years ago when I lived in Florida. Now I gotta turn onto the worst highway in this state. It's like you make a right turn immediately onto like a 55-mile-an-hour highway, and it's very windy and turny. If you know the Taconic, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I was very deep, and I don't know if anybody listening has ever had this experience, but it's like, if you're a visual person, maybe you'll understand this. Do you know the difference between the crispness when you're looking at somebody's face in real light, in real time with your naked eyes, and you can see the way the light falls on the little hairs on their face, and you can make out the pores in their face, and the definition of the like micro nuances of their face, like how that's all apparent when you're looking at somebody's face, and it's hyper real. The detail is hyper pronounced. Whereas when you close your eyes and you imagine somebody's face, the visceral experience of taking in their physical appearance is not quite as focused as it is in real life, in real time. There's a very visceral sensation that arises from visual stimulation. Visual stimulation can appear in the physical or in the metaphysical. So when I was on this massage table, I was in a very meditative space, and I wasn't sleeping, I was lucid, I was aware, and all of a sudden my dad's face just appeared in front of me. The hyper details of his face just came into view, and it sent through my body a very visceral response that I can remember. It simply was an experience of me connecting with my father in some form that left an impression on me. The most significant memory that I have of my father was also after he passed away. think, but I was 3 years old. In my living room, there's a couch, and it's facing the wall with my fireplace. I remember watching a man with red hair, and he was wearing like overalls and like construction working clothes, and I think he had like glasses or a helmet or something on, or like glasses around his neck or something. He was standing on a ladder to the right of my fireplace with like a measuring tape, and the photo of my dad's eagle was hanging on the wall. He was like taking measurements and just kind of adjusting the eagle and hanging it up perfectly. To the left of my fireplace, there was another man who was wearing like those formless kind of medium wash, like straight-legged, like soft denim jeans and loafers and a flannel, like a tartan flannel long sleeve shirt tucked into the jeans, and dark hair, and he had one hand on his hip. I think his right hand was on his right hip, and his left foot was was like stepping on the was it the hearth of the fireplace, whatever the ground level thing in the fireplace is. I think it's the hearth, and then the one on top is the mantle. So I think his foot was on the hearth. He had his left hand like on his chin, and he kind of had like a very gentle, inquisitive, peaceful like expression on his face and in his voice, and he was like, yeah, that looks good there, I like that. Yeah, okay, now move it over a little bit. Yeah, I like that right there. And he was just talking like this. The first time I retold that memory to my mom, she told me there was only one person there. And when I described the other man, she was like, that was Daddy. That was him. That's that. That happened. Other than those more tangible memories and stories, he lives in me in the form of how I look and like my demeanor and my creative tendencies. My mom would always comment about the music that I listened to and how it was so zen and so similar to what Daddy would have listened to. She would come into my room and feel how I would decorate it and how I would play the music and how I would, put my little fairy lights up and whatnot, and just comment on the ambiance that I would create and the zen atmosphere that I just created in a room, or the calm that I would bring into a room. A lot of people told me that when I was younger, people would comment on like my calming presence in a room and the zen, everything from all that which I just said, and my music taste and my love for nature and exploring and details and color and my sense of humor as well, and my playfulness. My mom has just remarked throughout my whole life that all of these things are just so much like the way my father was. That imbued me with a sense of comfort throughout my life, that I am him. I am living his legacy. He imbued his spirit and aspects of his personality and his genes and into me. As far as a connection with him goes, all those things lend themselves to one. Those are some stories about my relationship with him, my background with him, and I appreciate you tuning in and listening. As I feel more inspiration, I'm gonna share more. I have about 2 hours left on the road. My vision was that I would set up my tripod next to his gravestone and set up the little camping chair and pop open an umbrella if I needed to protect myself and my sketchbook from a drizzle. And I was gonna film me just, messing around in my sketchbook and drawing an eagle in his honor and in honor of this heirloom that was so tragically torn from our family. I'm still kind of numb to that reality right now. When I think of it, I don't feel so much emotion as I do like numbness and shock. It's meaningful in so many ways. Part of my process of connecting with what it means and making meaning out of this, making significance out of something so unfortunate is me driving to his grave on his birthday, on Yom Kippur, trying to make what I can out of this and make it beautiful, make it meaningful. So, yeah. One more thing that I will mention is that it's crazy that all this happened, like right around Yom Kippur. It's the Jewish time of year for atonement. It's a time of judgment and renewal and cleansing, purification. I'm going to continue this drive, and we'll see where today takes us. Intrinsic in devastation, loss, and the ripping away of old forms and attachments is possibility, pure potential, new life, new birth. A noble eagle lands, its flight finishing forever. It dies. With this eagle's death also taken is a significant form that the memory of my father's life is attached to, and yet, someplace else, another beloved hand in space-time yields pencil strokes to bring to life an idea. Death and loss and life and birth are happening everywhere constantly. Death and loss breed life. The alchemy of feeling the pure shock that was brought on by the devastating loss of my cherished family heirloom points to something deeper and more intrinsic than one singular changing form in life can necessarily point to, and that is nature. Nature itself. This liminal moment is simply wrapped in a story unique to my life and the objects and relationships and circumstances surrounding it. Yet intrinsic in all life is the same story expressed through different forms. Once again, I am confronted by loss, devastation, change, and the inevitability of loving and cherishing and holding. With every dear encounter will come a grave loss, and with every grave loss will come a choice to expand one's capacity for compassion and connection. Right now I am tired. Right now I feel grief and exhaustion. It's through moments like these when the too precious to hold gifts all around me are illuminated. It's when lightness and laughter from those closest to me pierce my soul and remind me of all I am full of, and all I've lost, and all it is I yearn for, and all it is I can never truly hold on to. Life is an institution built from bricks that are too transient to stand on, bricks that remain not for long. Life is an institution that crumbles and whose rubble is henceforth taken into the hands of wandering passerbys and used to create a new tool or building or work of art, or yet tossed into a forgotten pile to slowly dematerialize and meld once again into the alchemical fabric of form and formlessness. Adding to the irony in that juxtaposition between illustrations of the gone forever eagle and the nest of unhatched eggs is the fact that this all happened on September 22nd, the autumn equinox, a day with faded change, decay, letting go, and transformation, and prolonged rest etched into its very design. As I reread and continue to edit this writing, I also realize this happened 2 days before Yom Kippur, a Jewish holiday of atonement. What would have been my dad's 63rd birthday, September 25th, 2023, is also the second day of Yom Kippur. It began at sunrise last night. This is a potent time of year when a blanket of spiritual judgment is meant to be cast over the subtle fabric of existence, taking stock of the fibers that hold this massive life tapestry together. Happening in the universe right now is the editing out of some loose threads, maybe the tying up of frayed edges, and maybe also the cutting away and patching in of new blocks of fabric entirely. However the great picture continues to unfold and reveal itself, this particular time energetically feels heavy and deep. Here I am again. For now, I'll allow myself to be heavy. My weighted spirit will sink beneath the loam of earth and decompose. It will be cast in dark, in pressure, and in just enough life-giving water to nurture the growth of seeds which both my current prayers and the ancient blueprint of my DNA will bear as new life within the next 2 seasons. Revealed yet again beneath the loss of this portrait is a link to the knowledge that the forms I cherish will change and disappear. Beneath it also is a feeling of rawness and vulnerability, that only the resolve to vest my faith in miracles and goodness can be fostered by. I'm here at the gravesite. It doesn't feel right to be talking, but it also feels right to give an update. My dad and my sister are here. My sister committed suicide in 2015, and 25 is a significant number. Today is the 25th of September. It's my dad's birthday. My sister was born March 25th and she died on June 25th. And I feel like being silent. Grief demands surrender. This level of rawness and vulnerability that I feel is an invitation to accept nature as it is. With the total welcoming in of inevitable grief and despair comes, by proxy, the total welcoming in of inevitable birth and possibility. A phoenix cannot rise from thin air. It must burn and die and become ash first. If there is no ash to rise from, the phoenix would not exist. Therefore, I will offer my reverence to this emotion. We host funerals to honor lost loved ones. Why shouldn't we ritualize and sanctify each of our internal deaths? Grief renders me too tired to hold on to anything but awareness of the sense of gravity anchoring my body to this earth. I am becoming ash, and I will savor this time, letting it take me, giving to it my flesh, thusly preparing myself to be surprised by new life when my spirit arises, cleansed and renewed on the other side of this. Now I descend. And to honor the descent, I decided to drive to my father's gravestone 3.5 hours from where I currently live. I'll go there and write. I'll talk to him. I'll pray. I'll be present. I'll bring a sketchbook and begin a new portrait of an eagle in honor of his legacy and memory, in honor of the pain and love we all carry in our hearts surrounding the loss of his portrait, the loss of his life, and the spiritual quest for a renewed connection with him, with who we love. I'm sitting here at the cemetery, typing on my phone. Questions are flowing through my mind. Why am I here? Why am I making this? Why am I sitting in the damp air, getting wet, filming a drawing on a piece of paper that's also now damp? I feel a bit cut off from my emotions. Lately, life has felt like one amorphous process of shifting and refinement, the energy moving through me, taking stock of the conglomerate of my whole person and reorganizing everything. I'm under construction, and I started this endeavor. It touches on some deep passions of mine, and I'm wading through the dark, experimenting, taking a risk, being vulnerable, exploring. God knows where it all will lead. The rain is coming down a bit heavier now. Time to pack up and collect a few more detailed shots. Hello again from my studio. I've just finished piecing together these clips with the story of how I'm turning the loss of my dead dad's eagle portrait into something significant. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening. I realized as I was editing this video that it's as much a story about this specific turning point in my life as it is about my background as an artist. I hope you'll stay tuned for more to come. Feel free to like this video, leave a comment, subscribe for more, or follow me on my other socials, which I'll link in the description. If you want to do more to support me as an artist, feel free to head to my website, which I'll also link in the description, and check out my handmade merchandise there. Until next time.